Good afternoon. My name is Andrew Kenny, and I'm continuing with my short series of videos entitled 10 of the Best. Now, by 10 of the best, I mean 10 of the best books I've read since I've become a Christian, and that was about 46 years ago. I've got about 3,000 books in my collection. I also have access to 60,000 more. Now, I can't honestly say that I've read the 60,000, but I've read quite a few books. And this is really to help young Christians in their faith so that they can get a good foundation and read the best of the Christian books that are out there. Now, whenever I was doing my advanced levels at school in Northern Ireland, I was studying biology, geography, which included obviously physical geography, religious studies and physics. Now, I eventually dropped physics to take up the religious studies. Well, I loved studying biology, discovering God's book of science, the plant cells and how a plant grows and the processes it uses, photosynthesis, etc. I loved geography. I loved the physical geography because I was reading about God's creation, the rocks millions of years old, and how they were formed, and this was how he did it, as well as the book of Scripture, which was obviously what I was used to. But studying the book of science was absolutely wonderful. Then a friend gave me a tape by a gentleman called Ken Ham, who I didn't know at the time, but he was known as a young earther. In other words, he believed that the earth was very young. It wasn't millions of years old. It was about 10,000 years old. And I listened to the tape. He sounded so persuasive. And then when I turned the tape off, I thought, I can't believe that. It's not what I've learned from these physical geography books and my biology books. And it caused me a lot of confusion. And I thought, I have to go into this, take this party line if I'm going to be a true believer, which I wanted to be. But it was as if I had to believe something which I didn't actually believe was true. So I was a great one for going around second-hand bookshops, and when I was around one day, I came across this book here. That's a Good Question by Roger Foster and Paul Marston, and that it was a lifesaver. It was really a lifesaver in so many ways, and it answered many of those questions, such as the age of the earth, Adam and Eve, etc., and how I can be a thinking Christian and not believe in the young earth and the sort of stuff that would come from the books of Henry Morris, who was one of the original young earthers, and Ken Ham. So this was a lifesaver. There's a question in it. Does this mean that you take the Bible literally, Adam and Eve and all? And he addresses the problems posed by Ken Ham and Henry Morris, who wrote the Genesis flood. And he says, no, it's you're reading the Bible the wrong way. You actually, what he says, we have to take the Bible literally, where it's meant to be taken literally. But there's some parts of it which aren't meant to be taken literally. The trees on the hills don't clap their hands. And likewise with the creation story. It is a story that a father telling his son thousands of years ago could understand, and the son could understand. And if when I read it to my son when he was a little boy, he could understand it. We we don't need to say it was millions of years ago, because that would ruin the story, so to speak. Genesis tells us who made the earth and why he made the earth. It doesn't go into the nitty gritty of the science of it, and that's what we want. So this was a wonderful book, and it answers lots of other questions. For instance, on Christians often seem to me to argue in circles, and I find Christians would do that. So he goes into that, explains it, and it satisfies your mind. Now, I remember writing to Roger Foster and asking him why was this book not in print anymore, and he said, well, his church had they had reproduced it, or they were going to reproduce it again. But there was also another book that he had brought out, and it was Christianity, Evidence and Truth. And again, this is a brilliant book that every thinking Christian should have, because it will really be so helpful, especially if you're going to school or college and you're getting a lot of anti-Christian stuff. We don't have to be young earthers. So he goes into God's existence, etc. What the evidence for God, and he doesn't argue in circles. Intelligent man. Well, actually, it's two of them: Roger Foster and Paul Marston, both excellent guys, and they even have a bigger one, and it's called Reason and Faith, and that's the one, really, if you can get it, you should get it now. It has nearly 500 pages, but it is excellent. Have this on your shelf. Now, when I say you can buy the odd copy on Amazon, I think it's out of print at the moment, and I think some strange people are selling their second-hand copy at £1,000, which it obviously isn't worth it. You may be able to get a second-hand one cheaper somewhere else. However, if you can't get this one, I ordered this other one, which I don't think is necessarily as good, but it is still a brilliant book, and it is by probably one of the greatest apologetics or apologists in the world at the moment today, William Lane Craig, and it's called Reasonable Faith. Now, Roger and Paul's is called Reason and Faith. This is called Reasonable Faith, and you can get this for about 15 quid, probably maybe $20 in America, and it is first class. If you're thinking Christian, if you are trying to reach those who are without Christ, they will ask you these questions, and you really need to be able to give them a reasonable answer. He has a beautiful chapter to start, and it's entitled, brilliantly written, it says, "How do I know Christianity is true?" And he goes through different philosophers and scientists, etc. And the next chapter is the absurdity of life without God. And again, it is brilliant. If you weren't a Christian, if I wasn't a Christian, I would say, I want to be a Christian. Now that's many books, 1, 2, 3, 4 books here to say, if you can't get any of the Roger Foster and Paul Marston ones, if you can get them cheap, get them. And that one is the best one among them. But this one is very, very good as well. And if you can't get any of those ones, definitely get this one. Now, this is a genre of Christian books of apologetics, and it is extremely important. You can watch a lot of videos on YouTube as well, which you will find beneficial. Particularly William Lane Craig. He has really devoted his life to evangelize and to reach the skeptic, reach the college student, and the thinkers, people who think. So that's today's book review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, just email me and I'll get back to you. So that was number 5 of 10 of the best Christian books. Thanks very much and God bless you. Bye bye.